Welcome to this week's GCN Tech Clinic, where we aim to answer your bike, tech and maintenance related questions that you guys have been leaving underneath our videos in the last week. So, straight to it this week. Conor, you lead us in with the first question.
Yeah, thanks for sending this in. John Lahane 7617. I'm off to Roubaix in April and we're bringing our bikes to ride some of the famous Cobbles, do some touring. Do you have any advice on tyres? I'll be riding a gravel bike, a Maride Silix 400 to be precise. Thanks and love the channel. PS, we will be going a good bit slower than race pace, so comfort will be more important than speed. Well, what I would say is good choice on the gravel bike for Roubaix Cobbles. Yeah. They're the hardest cobbles out there. Don't underestimate them. They are proper beasts, some chunky boys. I'd say good job you can go on a gravel bike, plenty of clearance. I think like 40 mil I'd go. 35's plenty, 40 would be nice and comfy. What I would say is go tubeless. If you can, okay. I would go tubeless because basically the risk of pinch flatting on the cobbles is so high because you just like boom, boom, boom the whole time.
Yeah, that's very true.
And it's when you get caught out because there are some like potholey sections and little like ruts you can get in. So a pinch flat is such a common thing.
Am I right in remembering you've ridden Roubaix, like the race?
I didn't actually do Roubaix. Okay. I've raced on a lot of the cobble sectors though, and I've shot films for GCN quite a few times.
So clearly you've got a lot. You've got more experience riding the cobbles than me. But based off of the information here, I'm going to say just fit the widest tyres you can fit into your bike.
Widest tyres. 40 mil will do it, but like I'd go wide, be nice and comfy.
The pressures as well. These it's no good having big, fat, wide tyres if you've got them pumped up really high. You've got to get the pressure set right. Generally, a little bit lower than what you would probably run in your narrow tyres, but the whole point is use the tyre pressure calculator. They're out there to give you that starting point. Yeah,
and you'll enjoy the sectors so much more as well. Some of those 5-star ones, it's the bends on them that are hard, they're off camber and it's hard to hold your line. So having that grip, really, really important.
Okay, next question. DJM Sydney, they say, is there any advantage, e.g. increased sealing capability or increased time between sealant replenishing by doubling or even tripling the recommended amount of tubeless sealant in your tyres? Well, they've kind of half answered their own question here because I'm going to say, whilst I've not got any data or seen any tests about this, putting more sealant in is simply going to make it last longer before it needs to be topped up again and increase the likelihood of it sealing the punctures. But I don't think it's really like rocket science.
Yeah.
Have you tried adding more sealant in?
I always err on the side of caution and I put a little bit more in than I need. And if I'm doing a challenge here on channel that's like I want to be light for or be more performance orientated, then I'd go like minimal and risk it a little bit. But yeah, I always err on the side of caution and it helps to put a bit more in.
Yeah, I completely agree because I have had it in the past where I've gone really like minimalist with the amount of sealant I've put in, and then I've had a puncture in a tubeless tyre and it's ended up almost sealing, but basically it squirted most of the sealant out before it could seal up properly, and then there just wasn't enough left inside it to finish the job off. So yeah. Right, next one to you.
Wilco2728. I'm a wax chain nerd. I have been waxing my own chains with the Silka Secret chain wax formula for a few months now. I'm just debating switching to UBN chains, which you can buy pre-treated with molten speed wax from Inner Spin. Others are available. Are there any benefits of buying that initial chain pre-wax and then maintaining it going forward, as I would do periodically with my current chains?
Well, the biggest benefit is that you haven't got all the hassle of like cleaning all the factory grease off and going through the process of prepping the chain and then waxing it yourself. And whilst you are paying a premium for someone having done that service for you, I think it's kind of good. And I would say, in my experience, sometimes the factory wax chains, they do seem to do a better job of them what you can do at home. I don't know if that's always the case, but I've found if I've had a factory wax chain, it seems to last longer than what I can get when I'm doing it at home.
Okay.
So
yeah, I think it depends. You've got all the kit set up. Like for me personally, it's not too much extra to like get the waxing pot on for the evening and give it a good strip, get some tunes going. But if you can afford to and you want to save some time, then
I bet Stacey loves it when she's looking after the kids and you're like, oh, I'm just going to go wax a couple of chains, I'll be back in an hour.
That's like my bedtime thing when everyone's asleep, and that's my little thing to de-stress. Wax some chains, love it.
Yeah. So technically there is no massive advantage other than you making your life a little bit easier, and then you can just maintain it the same as you would normally. So there you go. Paul Fisher 80 next. They say, hi dearest tech duo. When I consulted when I consult online tyre pressure calculators, such as Silca, SRAM, etc., I get a recommended pressure as low as 4.4 bar or 64 psi. My tyres state a minimum pressure of 5 bar / 72 psi, and the rim even has a 6 bar 87 psi. I'm assuming it's a limit written on there. Must the rim and tyre manufacturers always be observed? And is it unsafe to run lower pressures than recommended? In that case, it would mean I'm going to miss out on the comfy pressures. Thanks for your show, Paul. This is quite a tricky question to answer here, because the official answer, I think it's important to stress to everyone, you should always stick to within the safety limits, be that lower or upper, of any product, right? I think that's really important. I don't want to ever advise and encourage everyone to do what manufacturers don't recommend. In my experience, personally, I have used tyre pressures that are lower than what is stated on the side of the tyre and the pressures that are written on the rim, and I've had no problems whatsoever. You've got to be aware these safety margins are quite big, and I would say if you are going to experiment with deviating close to these safety margins, you do so at your own risk, I guess. It's a tricky one to get right, because I don't for 1 minute think that your tyres are just going to fall off the rims and explode, but they're there for a reason. So
yeah, I totally see where you're coming from. I think as well, for me, if I'm using a wider tyre, I'd ignore.
Yeah,
I'd ignore the stats.
It's really tricky, isn't it? It is tricky.
But on a road tyre where speeds are higher,
yeah,
I wouldn't risk it as much.
I would feel...
There's not as much of a need to anyway.
No, I would feel more comfortable being near the lower pressure limits than what I would feel comfortable being near the higher pressure limits. Because the higher pressure limits, you've got a chance of the tyre literally bursting off. Lower pressure limits, I don't think there's such a huge risk involved. But maybe if you really want to use lower tyre pressure limit and you can't get it low enough because the volume's so big, maybe move to a slightly narrower tyre, and then it's going to mean you have the pressure slightly higher. It's like the opposite of what the entire bike industry is trying to tell everyone. Yeah. There you go. Max Herrera next. Do you want to read this question out?
Yeah, hi Ollie and Alex. I recently upgraded the cockpit with my Focus with a Pro Evo handlebar. I love the 2-degree shim and tighten the bolts to 5 Newton meters to recommended torque. After a couple of hours, 1 or 2, I feel the handlebar moved a bit. Usually after descents or bad tarmac sections, I had to stop and align it again, or when I finished the ride. I've not had a long ride of more than 5 hours since I upgraded, but I know it will not be a good experience with this issue.
Okay, right, I'm going to dive straight in here. There's 2 things that spring to mind. No, 3 things that spring to mind.
Yeah.
Number 1, are you using a torque wrench that is calibrated correctly?
Yeah.
Most importantly. Number 2, are the bolts that you're torquing up, do they have grease on the threads? Because that is going to affect how the torque is applied to the bolt. And number 3 is, if my memory serves me correctly, the shim that goes with these handlebars has a little arrow where you have to line the slot up with the gap on the stem. So if you've not got that up, it's going to affect how the whole system is clamping together. And I think after that, I'm struggling to think of any good suggestions.
Carbon paste, is that it?
Carbon paste could be an option. Yeah, I like that suggestion. Yeah, that'll help sort of everything generate a bit of friction together. So, yeah, all right.
Yeah, I hope that helps, Max.
Next one is from Phil Walker, 4637. They say, I've been doing a training plan and already seen the gains. It's an 8-week plan, which I appreciate is relatively short, which is why I'm curious if I should be doing any FTP testing during the plan, or is this more appropriate to do the FTP test after? Just want to ensure I get the full benefit from the training plan. I've put this in because I know you've been doing a bit of testing and research about FTP at the moment, so I thought you might want to share.
Yeah, so I think it's really important to try and get some continuous testing done, especially if you're starting off on a plan and you're starting to feel yourself improve.
Yeah.
Basically, you want to make sure that you're adapting the training you're doing to your current fitness level. So as you improve, obviously those rides and intervals you're doing are going to start to feel easier.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure you keep pushing yourself onwards, otherwise you will kind of reach a bit of a plateau. So what I'd say is, it doesn't necessarily have to be an FTP test. I'm not sure what training plan you're doing and what it's based on in terms of how to adjust your intensity. But look at that and do a test that kind of fits accordingly, that will allow you to change those power numbers or like your effort intensity as you go along.
Yeah, okay, fair play.
So yeah.
Right, last question. Over to you, do the last one.
Yeah, this is from Courtney. My local bike shop cut me a deal on a Dura-Ace 12-speed group set, but used a 105 1136 to save a few dollars. Dura-Ace cassettes come in 1134 max. Will it be a problem running this larger cog with the Dura-Ace derailleur?
This is a question we've had a few times, and similar to the tyre pressure question. Officially, no, Dura-Ace is only rated up to a 34. Unofficially, in most cases, you can adjust the B limit screw enough that it will account for running the 36 tooth cassette without any issues. Maybe just be cautious when you're in the large chainring and towards the top of the cassette. That's when you're going to really stress the capabilities of the derailleur the most.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it should work okay. There you go. Right, that's it for this week's GCN Tech Clinic. I say it every single week. I'm sorry if we didn't answer your question, but do be persistent. Put it in the comments section down below and we'll get to it in the coming weeks. See ya.